Another mystery buried deep in the hills of eastern Washington keeps resurfacing. A bottomless pit said to be a pathway to the paranormal.
He said, this is an endless hole. And people get it confused with what I call the devil's hole.
Are you eager to know the latest discovery on Mels Hole? You've stumbled upon the perfect video. A spine-chilling rumor is circulating that Mels Hole was sealed shut, and an unimaginable terror was unleashed. Intrigued? Stay tuned to this video for the full story.
All right. When did you discover this hole?
Well, the hole has always been there. We've been out there for a couple of years now, and the hole has been there since we've been there. It's been there since the previous owner was there, and the previous owner there was quite elderly, and I'd say he was there for a good 30, 40 years before we moved in.
Wow.
Chapter 1. Mel Waters' First Appearance. On February 21, 1997, Mel Waters appeared on the Art Bell radio program to give his account of a mysterious hole on his property. Bell was a well-known American broadcaster. He was best remembered for his radio program, Coast to Coast AM, which became very popular due to its examination of unusual subjects, conspiracy theories, and paranormal events. Late-night programming on Coast to Coast AM began at approximately 10 or 11 p.m. and continued into the wee hours of the morning, concluding at roughly 4 a.m. Bell's engrossing storyline and dynamic hosting manner enhanced the program. Bell's program explored various topics, including cryptids, alternative medicine, government cover-ups, ghosts, and UFOs. In addition, he offered a forum where visitors, professionals, and phone users could exchange views, opinions, and conversations about these outlandish subjects. Bell's show attracted listeners looking for unusual and thought-provoking content, building a community of people fascinated by enigmas and unexplained phenomena. When Mel Waters made his debut on the show in 1997, the audience was on the edge of their seats, anticipating the unveiling of a new mystery. Little did they know, this enigma would captivate them for years and even pique the government's interest. Mel shared his tale of a mysterious hole in his home, a discovery that turned his life upside down. Born in the mid-20th century, Mel Waters' life took an unexpected twist when he stumbled upon this inexplicable pit on his property. In the early 1990s, he relocated to this remote and rugged area in Manastash Ridge, seeking a quieter and more secluded lifestyle. However, the hole had other plans, thrusting him into the spotlight. Waters described the mysterious qualities of Mel's hole, which captivated Bell's listeners. Mel became well known after being featured on Bell's show, arousing people's interest in the enigmatic hole and its purported supernatural qualities. Due to this broadcast, his statements regarding the pit became more widely known, sparking more conversations, rumors, and public attention. The program contributed to Mel's Hole's ascent into popular culture and the paranormal, enhancing its reputation as an enthralling but elusive mystery. Waters initially faxed Bell, detailing the perplexing discovery of the mysterious hole on his property. He shared intriguing details about the hole, its bottomlessness, and the strangeness associated with it. What are these strange happenings? Keep watching. With millions of listeners, the program boasted a large audience reach. Furthermore, the late-night broadcast window of the program was ideal for drawing in a committed and varied viewership interested in paranormal events, conspiracy theories, and unusual subjects. The program was quite successful, and at the time, it was one of the most influential and listened-to late-night radio shows. No wonder Mel's Hole attracted much attention. But first, where is this hole located? According to Mel, the hole is in a mysterious location near Manastash Ridge. However, many argued that this was not the location, and later, Mel would talk about a second hole. You might wonder how Mel learned about the hole. He said he didn't wake up and decided to start searching for a hole. Instead, he discovered a strange pit while stumbling across his expansive property. When Waters discovered the hole seemed extremely deep, virtually endlessly deep, he disseminated his research, arousing interest and conjecture among a broad audience. People found it hard to believe when Waters claimed that the hole was bottomless and could consume anything without producing a sound. His reports of the anomaly's supposedly infinite depth heightened the sense of mystery and skepticism among nearby residents and others. Since then, Waters' tales have attracted much attention and fascination. Mel disclosed in the interview that he had bought the property a few years before the discovery, noting that the previous owners had owned it for over 30 years. The neighbors knew about the pit and frequently dumped their trash, but it never seemed to fill up. It was a circular pit with a stone retaining wall extending about 15 feet below the ground surface. Beyond the wall, the entire board hurled dirt and bedrock, leading to a never-ending darkness. No one could recall a time when the hole did not exist, and there did not seem to be a bottom to the pit. Anything dropped into it made no sound, no splash, no crash. Well, it could have been a deep hole, but the strangeness associated with it proved otherwise. Chapter 2. Bizarre occurrences around the hole. According to reports, many strange events happened around the hole. For instance, animals avoided the area, and strange signals interfered with technological gadgets. As a result, the hole attracted interest and discussion that extended well beyond the local area. Because of the way this pit looked, Waters initially thought it was a well. His detailed tales create an intriguing yet elusive picture. In the rough landscape of Manistash Ridge, the hole seemed like an exact round opening. Its diameter is thought to be approximately 9 feet. The rugged natural terrain surrounding the pit contrasts strongly with its smooth, nearly immaculate borders. According to Waters, the pit was unfathomably deep. Reports from that time have stated that the depth might range from thousands to infinite feet. The hole appears to reach eternally into the Earth's depths from the exterior, as there is no discernible bottom. Even strong lights cannot completely penetrate the darkness after a certain degree. In addition, Waters saw strange, inexplicable temperature variations, and steam emerged from them on cold days. Mel Waters was not the first to find the enigmatic pit. A few residents were aware of it beforehand. Due to its reputation for having an untamed and isolated landscape, the location drew those looking to live off the grid or in solitude. However, the information was limited to the immediate vicinity. Mel Waters characterized the hole as having peculiar physical characteristics. It was nothing like a traditional well, even though it looked like one. Waters observed odd things happening around the hole related to electronics. The region was mysterious as he noted radio interference, and his radio equipment picked up odd messages. Another captivating feature was the unusual behavior of the indigenous fauna. Birds seemed to stay away from flying above this hole. Mel also noted that his dogs were not particularly eager to approach the hole, which he says is not typical of them. Furthermore, despite the hole's apparent depth at the top, Waters described seeing mysterious lights or beams. During one of these moments, he saw a solid black beam that resembled a searchlight emerge from the hole's depths and reach the sky. A dead dog was purportedly lowered into the enigmatic pit in another hotly debated story that Waters related. Instead of burying his loyal friend, the dog's owner decided to drop it into the pit. The dog resurfaced a few days later, well and alive, claiming to have been brought back to life by the mysterious qualities of the hole. The revived dog showed renewed vigor and vitality. However, when the owner saw it running in the woods, the dog didn't recognize his voice anymore, as it kept running as if something was on its heels. While speaking on the show, listeners raised diverse ideas on confirming whether the hole was truly bottomless. Bell Art then suggested that someone be lowered into the pit to give a personal report of what was below. Mel was worried about the hazards further down the pit, like high temperatures, extremely high air pressure, and poisonous gases. Despite these reservations, a caller enthusiastically offered to help, but no firm arrangements were formed to carry it out. But here's a shocking point. Mel's wife had disappeared without a trace. Couldn't it possibly be that the woman lies beneath the hole? Well, that's one of the mysteries that no one ever thought about or solved. We can't even be sure. However, as Mel's curiosity got the better of him, he decided to experiment using the knowledge he had gained from fishing for sharks. He thought he could find out if there were water in the pit by extending a fishing line into it. He then lowered the end of the line into the pit and threaded it through a roll of lifesaver candy. The candy hung 1,500 feet below for a while, but when he pulled it back up, it remained intact, indicating no water at 1,500 feet. For his next test, Mel began by lowering a single PB lead weight into the pit. When his fishing line ran out, he connected a fresh spool and carried on. He repeated this process, stretching the line until he had used an incredible 80,000 feet of line, more than 15 miles. Chapter 3. Government Interference. After Mels appeared on the show, several local myths about the pit surfaced. While some assertions made sense about what Waters said, others were implausible. Someone proposed, for example, that the hole was a portal through which spirits passed, or a doorway to another world. Some mythologies connected the hole to creation stories, attributing its existence to legendary creatures or giving it a function in the universe's order. Some rumors claimed people were going missing close to Mel's hole. Well, that can't be true because that would mean Mel should have disappeared before ever reaching out to Art through fax. Despite the absence of hard data, these tales added to the enigmatic atmosphere surrounding the location. Reports of strange sightings, atmospheric disturbances, and other unexplainable occurrences enhanced the story of the region's enigmatic nature. Despite investigations, no conclusive answers to these incidents make it even scarier. But after the show, Mel met a surprising sight on his land. 4 days after the show, armed military troops suddenly blocked the road leading to his home. More surprising was that the soldiers didn't allow him to enter his land. This startled him, and when he asked for an explanation, he received a confusing reply. The soldiers said there had been an aircraft accident on the land. However, Mel had not noticed anything similar. There were no outward indications of the incident, such as smoke or debris. His perplexity was exacerbated by the sight of personnel dressed in hazmat suits. Mel tried to interact with the authorities by requesting to talk with a higher-ranking official, but he was met with ambiguous and intimidating answers. When he insisted on knowing what was happening because, after all, this was his territory, they threatened him, saying they might discover evidence of his guilt, like a drug lab on the land. Mel responded that he would make all this public, but the cop laughed it off. Mel tried to seek clarification and reason with the authorities, but the situation remained secretive. This military participation added depth and intricacy to the already mysterious story of Mel's hole. After this confusing interaction with armed military officials, Waters returned to the air to discuss everything that had happened. While on the show, he revealed that his real estate agent had suggested possible purchasers expressing interest in buying his property. Despite no firm bid, the agent convinced Mel that the deal would be profitable. For the first time, Mel also described an encounter with an elder in the community, who revealed that stone columns had formerly surrounded the pit. The hole may have experienced numerous alterations during its long history, and may have been far older than previously believed. A caller cleared the mist surrounding the soldier's sudden appearance. The caller said Mel's property was close to the Yakima Training Center, a government facility, which could have triggered the military's appearance. Another person interrupted the discussion by asserting that the region was known for unusual occurrences and UFO sightings. The show ended, but nobody expected what would happen next. Mel vanished. Chapter 4. Mel's second appearance and a second hole. But in 2002, Mel unexpectedly returned to Bell's show. Where had he been hiding for all this time? Mel had a new tale to tell. 3 years earlier, he was caught up in an odd chain of circumstances when he was supposed to make his third appearance on the radio show. After assisting his nephew with moving into an apartment, he caught a bus back to Olympia. However, transit authorities stopped the bus due to certain disturbances. He alighted from the bus, and after being escorted onto a different bus along with others, he passed out. Subsequently, he discovered himself in a San Francisco dirt alley. In addition to having an IV line in his arm for no apparent reason, his personal belongings were gone. 3 of his molars were missing, adding to the oddity. Mel, lost and desperate, contacted his nephew to ask for assistance getting back to Olympia. After that, he was offered an amazing offer, a lifelong lease on his land, in return for a substantial monthly payment of $250,000. But there was a catch. He had to move somewhere else and keep quiet about the pit. Thus, Bell took the money and moved to Australia. In 2002, Mel Waters vowed to no longer remain silent. Mel's hole had garnered much attention by this point, but then Mel's appearance came with something shocking: the second hole. This is even more intriguing. Sit tight, as the capability of this hole is out of the norm. Mel first came on the show and told the tale of a dime's unusual and unexpected finding. The dime has an image of President Roosevelt with the year 1943 inscribed on it. This was an anomaly, though, because there was no dime with the image of Roosevelt that year. The coin's mint mark, which typically indicates where it was made, further complicated matters. This dime was unusual because it included B, an odd detail given that no city connected to the minting of American currency had ever been named after the letter. Mel sent it to a professional coin appraiser, but when he checked in again a few days later, the appraiser claimed that the Treasury Department had claimed the coin. But why would they act in that way? There are many different explanations and speculative ideas regarding this unusual coin. According to some theories, the coin can be connected to Mel's hole-related extraterrestrial occurrences. Speculative factors surround Mel's hole, including stories of time distortions connected to the location. People who have reported seeing strange time-related phenomena near the purported location have detailed these events. A few people said they had noticed irregularities connected to time close to the hole. These legends commonly claimed time dilation, in which time appeared to move more slowly than usual, or incidents of clocks or other timekeeping devices supposedly malfunctioning randomly. While some described missing time instances, where they could not account for a portion of their experiences, others claim to have seen odd oscillations over time. Several explanations have been proposed for these purported time-related events connected to Mel's hole. Theories regarding how gravitational anomalies could produce time dilation effects and interdimensional rifts were among the theories floated. However, without hard scientific proof or thorough research, these occurrences and speculations are still only conjectural elements connected to the mystery of Mel's hole. As per the dime, Mel had a different story to tell, and this led to the revelation of the second hole. This was how it all happened. A group of Native Americans in Nevada contacted Mel via email. They invited him to their reservation to discuss his knowledge of arts and crafts and wild plants. Mel traveled to Nevada to meet people interested in his research, and intrigued by the plants he had grown close to the original hole. He described these plants, and the Native Americans led him to another area of land where they had their own hole. This second hole was located on public land in the center of a village where Basque residents had made their homes. The Basques are a small, isolated ethnic community in a particular European region. They have been rearing sheep in Nevada since the 1800s, and the hole was of spiritual significance to them. Like Mel's hole, this was about 9 feet wide, but instead of a stone retaining wall, it had a metal collar surrounding it. The metal lining reached as far as the eye could see, and like Mel's hole, the metal rim radiated a distinct field of warmth that was distinct from regular heat. This new pit had unique sound-canceling qualities. Sounds directly above it were absorbed, and striking the metal rim made no sound. Animals were scared of this hole, and reports of seeing a black beam emanating from it were similar to what some had seen near Mel's hole in Washington. Mel and the villagers decided to conduct experiments. In the first attempt, they lowered a bucket of store-bought ice as far down into the pit as they could, about 1,500 feet. At the same time, they kept another bucket of ice on the surface as a control and allowed it to melt halfway before raising the pit ice to compare the two. Remarkably, the ice in the pit did not melt. Rather, it remained lukewarm. What was more startling was that it remained solid when Mel placed his hands in it. When they tried to melt the lukewarm ice, it caught fire. The fire produced a heat-generating flame that resembled a flickering light rather than the usual huge yellow flame. Mel related the incident on the radio, mentioning that the bucket of ice kept burning for months, and he thought it might still be burning. They repeated the bucket experiment during the winter, but the results were inconsistent, working only about 1/3 of the time. During one attempt, one of the Basques expressed a desire to be lowered into the hole, but they dissuaded him due to the peculiar results of the ice. Instead, they decided to lower a sheep into the pit. However, the sheep fiercely resisted the idea, kicking, screaming, panicking like all animals, refusing to go near the hole. Determined to achieve their aim, the Basque stunned the sheep between the eyes and placed it inside a crate with a cable attached for lowering. The sheep let out terrifying cries that could have chilled anyone, but as soon as the crate containing the lamb was placed squarely above the pit, all sound stopped. The sheep kept shaking the box ferociously, but there was total silence above the hole. The sheep struggled as it descended inside the crate, but there was no movement by the time it reached the halfway point of the cable's length. Mel and the locals left the sheep underground for 30 minutes. After experiencing a strange, hazy vibration in the metal rim, they hoisted it back to the surface. The box had stopped moving from the outside, and everything seemed normal. However, the sheep had died. But then, it still looked fresh. This prompted a Basque elder to dissect the animal on a nearby table. It then appeared as though the sheep had been fried inside. The villagers observed a large tumor development inside the sheep and spotted an odd gel surrounding it. When they sliced up the tumor, which appeared to pulse like a meaty sack, a creature that looked like an 18-inch long mix between a seal and a fetus, complete with flippers but human-like eyes, emerged. Amazingly, the creature was alive and attached to the tumor by an umbilical cord. It looked at the human observers, detached itself from the cord, and appeared to be in a state of miraculous presence. Mel was prompted to place the creature on the ground after it cowered to the edge of the table and gave her a slow nod before turning around and willingly returning to the hole. The witnesses were so affected and emotionally spent by this incredible experience that in the end, they decided to throw the sheep's remains back into the hole. Mel mentioned that a Basque, the elder, who had always believed the hole was a spiritual site, did not appear shocked by the monster. Before turning in for the evening, he gave Mel an item and told him to preserve it. Mel collected it without looking at the object, and later, when he reached into his pocket, he discovered what the elderly man had found in the vicinity. A 1943 Roosevelt dime, sealed in a small red envelope. That explains how he got the dime. We can then conclude that the second hole must have been the mystery behind the dime. But there's one more thing. Mel claimed that before his trip to Nevada, he had been diagnosed with a terminal form of esophageal cancer, and that, upon returning home, the cancer had miraculously disappeared. Mel thought the creature he had encountered in Nevada somehow healed him. When he returned to his home in Coast to Coast, something strange still happened in Nevada. Remember, one of the Basques took the burning ice to his cabin to keep it warm. Well, that turned out to be a costly mistake. He kept the burning ice in a stove, and it continued burning for months. But that was not all. The ice was pulling moisture out of the air, making the air in the cabin and the owner's skin dry. He felt thirsty every time. Whenever he boiled water, the steam would be pulled into the stove. On a fateful day, the stove crashed through the floor and entered the ground beneath the cabin. A few weeks later, he returned home to meet a collapsed cabin. But that was not all. It had also turned to dust. Everything. The individual had to move in with his brother. A month later, he returned to the cabin and discovered that the stove was now 5 feet underground, and the hole made by the stove was perfectly smooth. In a nutshell, another bottomless hole was in the making. He tried to pull up the stove, but failed. It took a giant crane to finally lift it out of the hole. The Basque also noted that the creature from the second hole usually visited them. This was a benevolent presence to them, and they considered it spiritual. They also reported that brightly colored birds circled the hole. These rare birds were immune to bullets. The Basque also believed that the magic seal communicated with them over a radio using a system of beeps and clicks as language they could shockingly understand. The creature warned them that the ice was dangerous and shouldn't fall into the wrong hands, as it could destroy the earth. Art asked if there was proof, like a recording or picture of this event. Mel said there was evidence because the Basque recorded for about an hour. Art convinced Mel to get the photos, recordings, and videos of the encounter when coming back on the show. Mel agreed to return to Nevada and gather all the evidence. Mel hung up as the show ended, but it was never aired again. Why? Mel never showed up. After 5 years, the story of Mel's hole in Nevada came to an inconclusive end. But that was the second hole. As for the first, let's look at speculations on how it came to life. Chapter 5. Speculations on Mel's hole. Several wild explanations have been proposed to explain Mel's hole. There are rumors that the government might be involved. It is not new to consider the possibility that military interests could try to manipulate or control any apparent abnormalities in a particular region. Nevertheless, hard data to back up these assertions is still scarce. Some speculate that the hole may have been caused by historical volcanic activity and might represent the entrance to a network of volcanic caves hidden beneath the surface. These hypotheses speculate that these caverns may contain strange geological formations or unknown secrets. A more imaginative and speculative theory centers on a hollow Earth, where the hole would serve as a portal to a subterranean inner world. According to this notion, there could be large underground areas on Earth that could support undiscovered civilizations. According to a fringe notion, the hole might serve as a conduit or gateway to alternative universes or other realms. This theory conjectures about the likelihood of interdimensional travel or interactions taking place there. Some theories propose that holes have peculiar electromagnetic properties or draw energy from special natural sources. This theory's proponents think that these energies could cause the odd events seen in the vicinity. Another theory is on extraterrestrial intervention, speculating that the hole may be connected to extraterrestrial technology or function as a UFO landing spot. This notion frequently combines with reports of nearby UFO sightings and contacts. Despite their absurdity, these ideas provide a variety of occasionally contentious insights into the true nature of the hole. Some hypotheses are based on scientific principles, while others explore the domains of mythology and pseudoscience. However, some natural explanations exist for the hole's associated events. For instance, the area where the hole is located may have distinctive mineral resources or geological formations that impact the environment. These anomalies could be caused by subterranean tunnels that produce bizarre effects or distortions, magnetic fields, or peculiar rock compositions. Magnetic fields produced by some geological formations can interfere with electronics and change perception. This influence could result in reports of weird encounters, skewed equipment readings, or altered senses. It is also possible that the region has seen mild earthquake activity, which could have caused visual abnormalities. Although these motions might not be powerful enough to trigger earthquakes, they might have a subtle impact on the environment and be a factor in strange events that have been documented. The region's particular atmospheric or climatic circumstances may also be significant. They could contribute to sensory distortions or visual illusions. For example, atmospheric anomalies or mirages may produce mysterious optical illusions. Some of the landscape's elements may be designed to produce illusions or alter perceptions when viewed from specific angles or lighting situations. Unusual rock formations, topographical features, or reflective surfaces may cause weird phenomena. Human perception and memory are naturally prone to biases and mistakes. Therefore, psychological influences on reported events can occasionally cause misinterpretations or exaggerations of the true events. However, here's another perspective on the matter. People may have perceived commonplace occurrences as mysterious or unexplained due to local legends, myths, or cultural beliefs. This cultural effect may make anomalous events around the hole appear more real. These justifications do not always refute the accounts of experiences people make of their own. Rather, they offer prospective lines of inquiry for scientists looking into facts about the hole. What is at the bottom, then? If the exact coordinates of the hole were known to the public, it would be a simpler question to answer. Numerous explorers and specialists have attempted to solve the riddle. One intertribal medicine man of Native American and white ancestry, Gerald R. Osborne, better known as Red Elk, has claimed to have seen the hole. But before we get to that, Jack Powell said something about the hole. Chapter 6. Maybe not real after all. A geologist named Jack Powell of Ellensburg was among those listening during one of the earliest coast-to-coast AM shows with Mel Waters. Powell, who has worked as an exploratory geologist for petroleum companies, taught geology at CWU for 11 years, and worked with the DNR for over 20 years, thought he knew where the hole was. When he was a kid, he grew up in the Kittitas Valley and played around an old gold mine shaft that went down at an angle into a field northwest of Ellensburg. Powell estimated that the shaft on the valley floor was likely 90 feet deep or more. It may have been as much as 300 feet deep when it was an active mine. When Powell heard on the radio show that Mel's hole was said to be on Manistash Ridge and more than 80,000 feet deep, he couldn't listen any longer. He knew the deepest mine shaft in the world was 12,672 feet deep, and the deepest known cavern was 7,188 feet. The Russians drilled the deepest borehole, down 40,230 feet, in 1989. Powell noted that the hole he knew must be what Mel changed into a mysterious hole. He had 30 years of experience in the geology of eastern Washington, especially Lower Kittitas County and Manistash Ridge. Powell noted that geologically and physically, having such a deep hole is impossible. According to him, it would collapse into itself under the tremendous pressure and heat from the surrounding layer. He concluded that Mel Waters must be talking about the hole northwest of Ellensburg on private property, fenced with barbed wire, and not too far from state DNR lands. He believed Mel used this hole to build a story around his mysterious hole on Manistash Ridge. However, in 2001, Seattle area discussion group members studying Mel's hole contacted Powell. Why? They wanted access to geological information and to research Mel's hole. To them, the Mel's hole exists. The group visited him, and he gave them a thorough lecture on the Manistash Ridge geology. He then led them to the old mine shaft and told them it inspired the mythical Mel's hole. The hole on Manistash Ridge doesn't exist, he said. However, the group didn't leave the possibility of finding Mel's hole. They later formed a group known as the Paranormal Society. But then, here is a twist. A record shows that Melvin Waters never lived in Manistash Ridge. The continued speculation that he adopted a pseudonym to protect his identity has seriously damaged the credibility of his story. Also, Art had always asked for pictures of the hole, but Mel always replied that he forgot to do that on every occasion. He also claims that interference prevents cameras from working nearly all the time, or that although he has photos and videos, they are not easily accessible. He says he will email them as soon as he can. Nowadays, a popular theory holds that Mel's tale became increasingly weird until he could not follow it and gave up on the quest to fool the world. Chapter 7. Paranormal Enthusiasts. 30 years later, in 2017, paranormal enthusiasts and people fascinated by the fabled Mel's hole teamed up with GoPro cameras, lights, and strings in hand in hopes of catching a glance into this fabled abyss. Suddenly, they were led by coordinates from a Reddit thread to a random farm that might be connected to Mel's hole. When they arrived, they were met with the sheer depth of the chasm, which defied easy explanation. They threw rocks since they could not figure out the bottom, which increased the mystery around this fabled hole. The group used binoculars to see a mysterious person watching them from a distance, but before carefully reviewing the video they had taken, they felt compelled to leave immediately. Later on, the group found a beetle down the enormous hole. But then, this doesn't look enthralling like what Mel said about his hole. Research is still on concerning this hole. However, the findings will trigger the government's involvement like they did the first time. We can only sit back as scientists dig out more mysteries about this hole. Well, how much of the story can we confirm? First, the Terra server blacked out that part of Washington, but it could be seen on Google Maps. This showed that the military had not taken possession of the area. If they had done that, they would have covered the hole. As for this location, someone went to the location. Everything here matched Mel's description. During one of his phone calls, Mel said 2 old buildings were on the property. and one eventually collapsed under the snow. On the same property lies a hole about 9 feet wide with a stone retaining wall. This was just as Mel described. But then, this hole was an old well with a bottom. This matched with what Jack Powell said. Art Bell knew what would captivate his listeners, and he gave it to them. Whether credible or not, his show was the talk of the town. He only raised a mysterious story that would remain evergreen even in the next 30 years. But wait, we haven't checked out what Red Elk had to say. Red Elk is a Native American shaman or medicine man who claimed that his father showed him the hole in 1961. According to him, it's an endless hole, and strange things happen when you go near it. He even nicknamed it the Devil's Hole. He also said that the government has a secret base there, a very small underground base, but that's not all. He also said that he had seen alien activity around the area. He described that a huge spacecraft appeared and hovered over the hole. During the summer solstice, spacemen load and unload things at the hole before flying away. No one could vet his explanation because he was his own witness. No one else saw it. So we can still conclude that Mel's hole is still a mystery. Many claim to have seen it, but it has not been found. Thanks for watching another episode of Beyond Discovery. While you're still here, check out the other videos you see on your screen.